What's up, Infinite Teenies? Welcome back to another episode. We've actually renamed all our stuff. What are we now? Days of Our Infinite Lives.
Yes.
Na, na, na.
We need the hourglass thing now.
She smashed the hourglass, really, because...
Or the never-ending hourglass.
Yeah, it's that never-ending. Like one of those gifts that just never give up. Days of Our Infinite Lives. Welcome back.
Yes.
It sounds quite dramatic. It's quite cool.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what we are now. And welcome along to our YouTube viewers as well. If you're watching us for the first time, we're doing these most days over in our Facebook group, which I can put up somewhere. There we go.
Yep.
Come on over and have a play with us. All the infinite beings are getting together. Infant teenies, we're called. So, yeah, come on over. So today's topic is awakening. Is it a one-time event or a lifetime journey? This is an interesting question because we came across this just recently ourselves, this question, and we went, oh, of course it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
Now, maybe not so.
Yep.
So what are you thinking about it, man?
Yes, well, recently I was looking into I guess it's a profiling system called Gene Keys, and it's as gene as in our DNA, G-E-N-E, and it's written by a guy called Richard Rudd, and he has come up with this system of, you type in your birth name and your date of birth and time of birth, and it kind of calculates a unique journey, I guess, that you're here to go on in your life, and it's surprisingly accurate, isn't it? That you did yours as well, and it's quite a complex system. So we've only done a very, very brief overview, but I really liked what he had to share about lots of different things. And there was one thing that he actually said in one of the audios where he's just talking about the gene key system in general, and he talked about awakening being a one-time event, like you only awaken once. And Nat and I both kind of heard that and kind of went, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like I hadn't heard that really before. I mean, maybe someone has said that before, but I haven't heard that. And so it kind of felt like that's something to kind of sit with and ponder a little bit and see how that kind of sits with us. And I sort of felt like it really felt true. And the way he was sort of saying is that you only, like usually it's like something happens in your life that kind of, you start to question something, or it could be an event you go to or something that starts to just drop in some different truth to what you've kind of been aware of before, and it sort of maybe shakes up your belief system a little bit, or maybe it's something that you've kind of had an inkling about, but then something kind of confirms that for you, or you get some kind of validation of that feeling that you've had before. And so when we sort of sat with it like that, we sort of went, that's kind of true, because once you've had that, you can't go back. Like you don't go back to sleep. You can't undo the truth that you've kind of known, even if you do cover it over with, other belief systems, or you get caught into dramas and things like that, that will still happen. But you don't ever forget that sort of moment, if you like, of where you kind of had this sense of, no, there's something more to the story. Like here, you go down the rabbit hole a bit and you can't forget that memory, if you like, So that's why we kind of sat with that, kind of going, wow, that's really quite interesting, because it kind of shifts that whole dialogue that goes on around awakening being a lifetime thing, that we're here to kind of keep awakening more and more. And in our sort of philosophy, I guess the way that we look at things is like, no, you do awaken just the once. Like that kind of really resonated when we sat with that. And then what's happening from there is that your awareness is just expanding. So we're already infinite, as we've talked about before. We're already everything in this moment. It's whether we remembered that. And so that's the journey, is that remembering of who we truly are, and our awareness of our expansion is what grows. But we only awaken the once, like we're awake, that's it. So it is just that awareness of how expanded we truly are is what the thing that's actually happening on our journey, if you like. So
yeah, feels quite relieving, doesn't it? I don't know about you, but I felt relief when I heard it.
It kind of takes away that sense that there's nowhere to get to.
Yeah,
there's nowhere to get to. Like, as if we're already infinite, there's nowhere to get to, nothing to do. It's just that, as we said, your expansion awareness of that is what's actually shifting. So it feels like you're awakening more and more, I think, but you actually are awake when you sit with it and sort of ponder it from that perspective.
Yeah, it's sort of like you're getting to play with more and more stuff, because more and more stuff is coming into your awareness. So as you say, that expansion thing is happening. So your world is getting, around you is getting bigger. So maybe before it was, for instance, just in your neighborhood, you know, you grew up and you're living in the same sort of area that you were always living in as a child, and you know, you go to work and you just have that sort of same routine going on, which you know, a lot of people do. Even if they move away, they've still sort of got this same routine going on every day. And then suddenly, yes, you get this more and more expansive feeling type thing. And it's like, oh no, there's more to this story. Like there's more to the world. Like I want to get out now and explore more. And I want to find out about, you know, get interested in these different topics or hobbies, and you get passionate about stuff because it's there. Those passions have always been there, but they've sort of been layered on top with routine and so many different things. And suddenly it's like, oh, I don't have to have this routine anymore. I can do this other stuff. So that sort of, to me, what it sort of feels like is this expansion thing of going on, of your world seems to be expanding. I guess your awareness is becoming greater. But yeah, I must say, I did feel a sense of relief when we first talked about this only a week or two back.
Yeah, it's not that long. Yeah,
with the Gene Key stuff, and I've just put the link in there to go and get your own. It is free to go and do it, and I got a huge amount. I really had to sit with it for a day or two and really absorb what came of my one, because it just felt quite deeply true, sort of thing. There was a lot of things that sparked for me that I was like, yeah, this is really cool. Like I really did. I got a huge amount out of it. So it's sort of interesting sitting there and going, okay, well, at what point did we awaken? What was our turning point? And ever since I remember sharing a story with you that ever since I was quite young, and I don't even know how old I was, I had this sense of, there was two things. One, that the life I saw around me just didn't make sense to me. It was sort of like, I'm not going to live like that. Like, and I didn't even know what that was. Like, I was that young. Like maybe it was Dad going to work all the time, like going off every day. Maybe that sort of sparked. You know, he had the same job for 40 years. And that I would never struggle for money, which is quite interesting, because yesterday I shared that that was the one thing that I actually feel like I've really struggled with over the years. But there's still this underlying feeling that I've never actually struggled for it. That's been the storyline of struggling for it. So it's sort of quite interesting to see these layers. So sort of having that feeling for quite a long time, like since I was quite young. And I'm sure a lot of people will relate to this that are really on this journey now, that there's always been these inklings that you don't fit in. Somewhere you don't fit in. I know you
think the same way as everybody else. Yeah, you question things and
yeah, something is not quite right with the world of what you've been shown on the media and what your parents perhaps are telling you, or what's happening at school, or, you know, in the workplace. And it's like, it just doesn't fit together like that.
It doesn't mean that you don't try and conform and fit in. Most of us have probably spent our life actually trying to fit in, but then kind of feeling underneath that we're not quite getting it right, like because we just don't seem to be getting it like everybody else is getting it, or something, or making it work like everybody else is. And there's a reason for that too, is because it's not meant to work. And
even religion. I mean, you probably question religion a lot more than I ever did. But there's 7 years difference between us. So there's probably maybe a bit more indoctrination in some ways. I don't know. But for me, the thing, being an only child for 7 years, and then you coming along to steal that. So maybe there, you know, every child's different in the family, of course, and what they take away from the family unit. But so it's sort of quite interesting that you do start questioning these things. And then I remember, like when we were talking the other day, it was like, what was our point of awakening? And for me, it was when I went and did John Demartini's work. And I don't think it mattered what the work was that I did. It was just like you said in the introduction. Finally, it was that confirmation that the way that you saw the world actually wasn't the way it actually is. And it was that final confirmation that I was like, oh, wow, I'm actually on the right track. And I think that sort of suddenly, a bit like hearing this, suddenly gave me such relief of like, I haven't been completely mad all these years. Like, okay, I found my tribe, I'm home. And it is that, it felt like that sense of coming home that weekend that we did the breakthrough weekend with him. And that started the journey then of this, you know, doing different courses and all sorts of things since then, you know, 15 years ago. So to me, that was my awakening point back in 2004, where I suddenly went,
and I would have said the same. When you shared that, I was like, yeah, that actually was the same, for me as well. Because I do remember that weekend being such a, it just sort of blew everything wide open in terms of what was actually possible, but also a whole bunch of questions kind of got answered that had been sort of floating around in my head probably on some level. And so to have that kind of confirmed and explained a little bit, so it kind of brings the mind sort of some peace by hearing that as well. But then on some level it just kind of unlocks this part of you that kind of it's almost like that infinite part of yourself that you've kind of known was there, like, but you weren't sure, like, because it wasn't really being reflected, say, too much around you by other people. But then to have that sort of validated and explained a bit and sort of shown, and then sort of what the possibilities of that is, that's what kind of felt like, oh wow, like you walk out of, well, for us it was an event, but we walked away from that kind of going, wow, you can't unsee that. Like, it's like the veil starts to drop and you see behind the illusion and you can't unsee that now. Like, it's just, that's it. Like, it's like the, I was thinking of that scene in The Wizard of Oz where they kind of go up to the big castle at the end and they see that behind it all is just the little guy on the, he's on the organ or something. I can't remember exactly what the scene is, but they kind of think there's this big thing that's behind it all, and it turns out this is this little guy kind of, you know, so that the illusion is kind of blown and everyone sort of has their power back, you know, so that they've been trying to get their power back all the time and they had it the whole time. So that kind of a thing is just like, wow, I have had the power the whole time, like, and I wasn't crazy, and I did know that there was this sense of knowingness, but that event was, for us, was a big thing. So for some people it could be a movie, or it could be reading a book, it could be a conversation with somebody that's already been on that journey, and it kind of just enlightens a lot of different perspectives for you. But there is, when you sit and ponder that, like if everyone was to sit and think about what that thing might have been for them, and then sort of consider it in that context of like, well, do I keep awakening, or was that it? Like, it is like a one-time thing and you don't go back to sleep. But then that awareness, as you said, Nat, before, about that, it's your awareness that it's expanding. It's not that you keep awakening, like you're already awake, you know. So it's even when you do layer it with a whole bunch of crap on top and you get drawn into dramas and story, you never go back to sleep. You might, you know, temporarily forget, but you don't. There's always part of you that kind of knows this is not like the truth, but you may get caught up in it for a little bit. But so when you sit with it in that context, it'd be interesting to see what everyone thinks about that, like what you feel around. Does it feel like a one-time event? Can you pinpoint for yourself
what is your
thing that happened? Or, as I said, it could be just a conversation or something you saw. Like, it doesn't have to be a big event that you went to, like a personal development event or something like that. Although for some people it's probably how it's happened. But so share with us.
Reading a book,
Interesting to hear different perspectives on what you think about that.
Definitely would be really interesting to hear what you think about this. I think it's such an interesting concept, and one I've not actually heard before until, as we said, probably 2 weeks ago. And I was like, wow, that really feels true for me. You're right, you can't go back once you've awoken. And it sort of, to me, indicates about the different phases of this journey that we touched on the other day, in terms of like phase one, you're totally in the story, like you're not even aware that there's a story going on. And this is where the majority of society actually is. They're just going about their day to day, and we will have all experienced this. You're going about your day to day, and you're going to your job, and you're married, and you've got kids, or whatever your storyline is. But that's it. Like, you're sort of just in that day-to-day stuff type thing, and then this awakening event or this sort of emerging starts to happen type thing. And then I know after that, John's course, suddenly I felt like I was witnessing everything. So I was even walking around the city, because we did it in the city in Sydney, walking around the city, and it was like I was observing everyone all of a sudden for the first time. It was like they were out there in some way, like I was actually disconnected in some way to everything going on. And it was like this real observer witnessing type thing of like, oh my God, I can actually see what's going on in this world now.
Like you pull yourself out of that bigger picture. You sort of draw yourself back and you're sort of outside of the picture now, and you're sort of watching it rather than being in it.
Outside of the story. So then you get to see what's actually going on all of a sudden type thing. And we often talk about this in relationships, like somebody will, you might go to a friend or something to get some advice about your relationship, and it's like, they can give you so much advice or give you observation, I should say, on your relationship and what they observe in your relationship. And it's like, because you're in it, you don't get to see all those things. Other people on the outside, it might be a parent or a friend that says, I have noticed that your partner does this, or you do this, you react this way when your partner does this. I was like, oh yeah, I do actually. I do see that now. Okay. So it's sort of that taking that, you've now stepped out of the story to actually observe more. So you get to see more.
Yes.
The result. And then to me, the third phase really is actually waking up to the fact, like you become aware of the awareness, in other words. So you become totally aware that you are aware, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in the second phase, you're aware. In the third phase, you become aware of the awareness. So there is sort of that next.
You are the awareness. Yeah. So
you are the awareness. You are life. You are the infinite already. So instead of using your power, which you might try and do in your first and second phase, which we talked about yesterday, now you actually realize you are the power. Always been the power, and that is that Wizard of Oz looking behind the scenes, going, "Oh, is that all that's going on?" There's no big thing out there. It actually has just been an illusion the entire time. And it's all broken. All the illusions get broken about reality. You wake up and see what reality actually is. It has no power outside of you. So you really do step into that infinite power, because once you're in the infinite power, you realize that there's nothing out. There's no power outside of you, because the infinite is everything. So there's no duality going on. There can't be one infinite power and then power and reality. You're everything. So, and that's sort of where we're all moving to, I guess, in doing this particular, all these lives and in this group. It's like pulling people into that third phase of going, wow, I actually have been the power the entire time. I didn't need to go and find anything. I just needed to acknowledge that it was there.
Yes.
And to acknowledge that it's there, then that's it.
Yeah. Then you can start to operate very differently in life, because it's like what we talked about yesterday. When you know that you are the power, it starts to move through you rather than it being outside of you. So it starts to, that's where that whole, like the name of the group about creating your realities, that's where it's about, because it all comes from within. Like it can't be changed outside of us. It has to come from within first. So it is that awareness of everything first, of where that's coming from, is what allows us to then make the shifts in our outside reality and how that shows up and what we get to play with outside of us there. Yeah.
To me, that's exciting. Like that third phase, I mean, the second phase is exciting anyway, but the third phase is just the ultimate in excitement. And that's why we named this group Infinite Beings Playing with Other Infinite Beings, because that's what it becomes when you get a group of people that are in the third phase type thing, and they're all knowing that they're the power, then anything is possible to create. You can create anything in your reality, and it doesn't matter, because you realize that one thing is not harder to create than another. $1 is not harder to or easier to create than $1 million, for instance. It's you get to create whatever feels true for you. So it's really playing the game of life at that point, and that really is exciting. Yes. All right. Well, there's our little thoughts about that. Do you have anything else to add, mate?
No, not really. I think that was kind of it for me. So it's like, just a bit interesting just to see where other people sit with that. Maybe it's something you have heard before, or it could be completely new concept, like it was for us around awakening being a one-time thing. So it'd be interesting just to hear how that sits for you, what you feel about that. Does that resonate? Doesn't resonate? You don't have to take on what we're saying either, of course. But it'd be interesting just to hear the different perspectives, or to hear about what, if you were to sort of sit back and think about what was that thing that was that awakening, like what was that for you, and then think of it in that context, like I said, as like, has that happened again, or is it just your awareness expanding, and actually sort of delineate it a little bit like that and sit with that and see how that resonates. Be interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good one. All right. Well, until tomorrow.
Yes. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you to anybody watching on YouTube. Again, you can come on over to our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/infinite play.
Yep. Come and join us.
Very good. All right. We'll
see you tomorrow.
All again tomorrow.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Play infinitely.